Welcome to today's deep dive. We're jumping right into a really specific slice of television history today.
Yeah, we really are. And I'm excited about this one.
Me too. So if you're listening to this, you're likely familiar with the world of retail management, whether you're running a massive superstore like Walmart or, a corner bodega or even a high-end clothing boutique. There is this specific line item on the annual budget that every manager just absolutely hates.
Oh, yeah. But they all accept it.
Right, they have to. It's called shrinkage, or more colloquially in the trade, breakage.
It is a really fascinating bit of economic realism when you look at it. I mean, it accounts for the jar of pickles that just slips out of a stock boy's hands and shatters in aisle 4.
Yeah, or the T-shirt that walks out the door under a teenager's jacket.
Exactly. It accounts for shipping errors, spoilage, minor accidents, all of that. It's the calculated statistical inevitability of loss.
A healthy business model basically assumes that you will never, ever capture 100% of your potential revenue.
Right. You accept the loss to keep the machine moving.
You sweep up the glass, you write off the inventory, you log it in the spreadsheet, and then you just open the doors the next day. You don't shut down the whole store because a single jar broke.
No, of course not.
But here is the question we are wrestling with today, and it's our core mission for this deep dive. What happens when you apply that standard retail logic to a high-stakes criminal enterprise?
Right. What happens when the damaged goods aren't jars of pickles, but human beings?
And perhaps most critically, what happens when the CEO of that enterprise just flat out refuses to accept that loss is part of the game?
That is the central tension of the material we're covering today. We are looking at Breaking Bad, specifically Season 2, Episode 5.
Titled, very appropriately and starkly, Breakage.
Breakage.
Now, before you think, oh, I know this one, it's just a setup episode where they move furniture around. Hold on.
Yeah, don't skip ahead just yet.
We have looked at the data, and this particular piece of media is incredibly polarizing. I mean, it is a bit of a Rorschach test for the audience.
It really is. On one side, you have critics like Noel Murray from the AV Club giving it a straight-up A grade. He called it a masterpiece of visual storytelling and thematic density.
But then on the other side, you have the rankings. Vulture ranked every single episode of the series.
All 62 of them.
All 62. And they put Breakage at number 62.
Dead last.
Dead last. The absolute bottom of the barrel, according to their metrics. And The Ringer wasn't much kinder either. They placed it at 44th out of 62, so solidly in the bottom third.
So our mission today is to really reconcile that massive gap for you. How can a piece of media be visually brilliant and narratively essential, yet be perceived as the worst or the most boring by a really significant portion of the audience?
It usually comes down to what the viewer is prioritizing, right?
Yeah.
Like the adrenaline of the plot versus the architecture of the psychology.
Exactly. And this deep dive is definitely for those who are interested in that architecture. This episode is the absolute foundation upon which the rest of the tragedy is built.
So let's open the file on the basics first, just to set the context for you. This originally aired on April 5th, 2009.
Right.
It was directed by Johan Renck and written by Moira Walley-Beckett.
And Johan Renck is a name worth noting here. He brings a very specific visual style to this. A lot of claustrophobic angles, a lot of focus on texture and silence.
Mm-hmm.
And Moira Walley-Beckett later went on to write Ozymandias, which many consider the greatest episode of the entire series. So the pedigree here is just incredibly high.
It really is. And for the trivia hunters out there, there is a dedication at the end of the episode to Kim Manners.
Right, a titan of television directing. He was huge on the X-Files and Supernatural. He passed away shortly before this aired, so it sets a pretty somber tone right from the credits.
Yeah, it does. But looking at the narrative itself, the real meat here is the introduction of the crew. We finally see Badger, Skinny Pete, and Combo stepping up from being these background jokes to being actual employees.
And of course, we meet Jane Margolis.
Jane. Yes, we will definitely get to her. She is pivotal in ways that ripple through the entire series.
But let's start with the business meeting. The episode opens with this really fascinating shift in the power dynamic between Walt and Jesse.
Usually Walt is the professor, right?
Right.
Lecturing the burnout student. But here they are discussing distribution, and Jesse is actually the one holding the whiteboard marker, so to speak.
He is. And it's driven entirely by necessity. Remember the context here for a second. Tuco Salamanca is dead.
Right.
The insane dictator phase of their business is over. Now they have a massive power vacuum.
And Jesse knows the DEA is sniffing around him specifically. I mean, they found his car at Tuco's, remember?
Exactly. He tells Walt point blank, I am not being a lone wolf anymore. He is terrified of being the street-level target.
So Jesse actually proposes a new corporate structure. He wants to layer it. He wants to be the middleman. He says, I'll be the distributor. I'll get guys to sell on the street. You cook, I manage, they sell.
It's actually a very sound strategy. It's vertical integration. Jesse suggests they control production, which Walt does, and wholesale distribution. But they farm out the retail risk to subcontractors. In this case, his friends.
It's a classic pyramid structure.
Or,
Or a multi-level marketing scheme, just with methamphetamine instead of essential oils.
right. And the three amigos, Skinny Pete, Badger combo. Now, looking at these guys, they don't exactly scream Fortune 500.
No, not at all. They're slouching, they're wearing beanies, they're talking slang. But Jesse trusts them.
And for a while, it actually works. The montage shows the money rolling in. It's efficient.
It works because they're insulated. Walt is insulated from the street by Jesse, and Jesse is insulated from the buyers by the crew.
But any business model is only as good as its weakest link. And in this case, the weak link is the unpredictability of the customer base.
Which brings us to the inciting incident, the robbery.
Right. Skinny Pete is out there doing his job. He's not a tough guy, he's just a dealer. He goes into a house to sell to a couple of addicts.
And this scene is just, it's so grimy, it's unglamorous, it's not a cool cinematic drug deal. He gets ripped off by a couple who are clearly just vibrating out of their minds.
They take the meth, they take the cash, and they essentially just bully him out of the door.
And this is where the definition of breakage moves from a business term to a moral crisis. Jesse meets Walt to settle up the accounts. He hands over the money, but the envelope is light.
Walt immediately spots it too. He's counting the stacks and he just stops. What is this? Where's the rest?
Jesse is surprisingly calm about it, which is interesting. He explains it just like a manager at Target would explain a missing inventory log.
He says, Skinny Pete got robbed.
Yeah.
It happens. It's breakage. He literally uses the word. He says, we made this much minus the theft. Here is your split.
To Jesse, this is just math. He is operating completely on a cost of doing business model. He's willing to absorb the financial hit. He's even willing to let Skinny Pete slide on paying it back immediately just to avoid the physical risk of confrontation.
He is prioritizing safety and stability over profit maximization, which is a very rational, modern way to run a business.
But Walt looks at that light envelope and he does not see a financial loss. He sees a massive PR disaster.
Walt is operating on cartel logic.
Exactly. Explain that a bit more for the listener.
Well, in the illegal drug trade, you don't have access to the court system or insurance, right? If someone steals your inventory, you can't sue them. You can't call the police. Your only recourse, your only actual asset, really, is your reputation for violence.
Right.
Walt argues that if word gets out that Heisenberg's crew can be robbed without consequence, they are finished. It's open season. Every junkie in Albuquerque will take a shot at them.
Is he wrong, though? I mean, strictly speaking, in that world.
Strategically? No, he isn't wrong.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of illicit markets, they really are governed by reputation. But morally, he is making a terrifying calculation. He is saying that $1,000 of meth is worth more than a human life, or at least worth the risk of taking one. He is rejecting the concept of breakage entirely. He is saying we are too good to lose money.
And he forces that calculation right onto Jesse. This is the moment that genuinely gave me chills when I rewatched it. Walt shows up at Jesse's new apartment later in the episode. He doesn't come to offer to cover the loss. He doesn't come to strategize on better security.
No, he brings a gun.
He hands Jesse a gun. It's a snub-nosed .38, I think. And the instruction is implicit but entirely clear handle it.
He is outsourcing the violence. And not the hypocrisy here. Walt wants the reputation of a killer. He wants everyone to fear Heisenberg, but he wants Jesse to be the executioner.
He wants to be the CEO who keeps his hands clean while the middle manager does the dirty work.
Exactly. It's a total rejection of the breakage philosophy. Walt is saying we will not accept loss. And by refusing to lose a little bit of money, he is totally willing to break Jesse's spirit.
He is pushing Jesse from dealer, which is essentially a passive role, to enforcer, which is an active, violent role.
And think about the long-term cost of that decision. This is where the analysis gets really interesting for me. If Walt had just said, okay, that sucks, let's be more careful next time, and just taken the financial hit, think about what doesn't happen.
Jesse doesn't go to the addict's house.
Right. The APM incident doesn't happen. The escalation with the cartel doesn't happen in the same way.
It's the sunk cost fallacy completely weaponized. He's trying to save a few bucks and creates a black hole that eventually swallows his entire family.
Which brings us perfectly to the other character who is being swallowed whole in this episode, Hank Schrader. If Walt is the one causing the breakage, Hank is the vessel that is literally cracking under the pressure.
Hank's arc here is so heartbreaking. On paper, this should be the best week of his entire life. He just killed Tuco Salamanca in a heroic shootout. He is the absolute hero of the Albuquerque DEA office.
And in this episode, he gets the golden ticket, a promotion to the Tri-State Task Force.
It's a massive career jump. He's going to the big show in El Paso. He's going to be working with the feds, crossing the border, hunting the actual cartel bosses.
But watch his body language in these scenes. In the scene with his boss and the other agents, he's loud, he's cracking jokes, he's doing that thing Hank does where he puts on a big show. He is performing the role of the alpha dog.
It's a mask.
It's entirely a mask, and then the elevator doors close.
Oh man, that scene, the sound just drops out. The camera lingers on him. He hunches over. He grabs the rail. He literally can't breathe.
It is a textbook panic attack, and it's beautifully acted by Dean Norris. You see the sweat, the pallor.
But why now? Why when he's getting everything he worked for?
Because the promotion removes his safety buffer. He survived the shootout with Tuco, but it deeply traumatized him. His brain is screaming, "I almost died." He hasn't processed that mortality at all.
Right.
And now his job is rewarding him by sending him into an even more dangerous environment, the border war. His body is physically rejecting the reality that his ego is trying to accept.
The writers use this incredible visual metaphor to dramatize this internal pressure, too. The home brewing.
Ah, yes,
Fraterbrow, right. Hank is bottling his beer in the garage. There is a shot of him forcing the caps onto the bottles. He is jamming them down with this capping tool, and he's just using too much force. One of them just shatters in his hand, cuts him wide open.
It's not subtle, but it is incredibly effective. Hank is the bottle. He is under too much pressure, the fermentation of his trauma, and he is being forced into a mold he just doesn't fit anymore.
He's trying to cap his emotions, and it's causing him to break physically.
But the sound design is where the A grade from the AV Club really comes from. Later that night, Hank is sleeping, and he hears it. Pop.
It sounds exactly like gunfire.
Exactly like it.
He wakes up, and he doesn't just wake up groggy. He wakes up in full tactical mode. He grabs his gun, he clears the hallway, he clears the living room. He is moving like he is right back in the shootout. He genuinely thinks the cartel has come for him.
And what do we find? It's just the beer bottles exploding in the garage.
The pressure from the fermentation blew the caps right off.
It's the perfect metaphor for PTSD.
Yeah.
The threat isn't external anymore, it's internal. The danger is coming from inside his own house, from his own hobby. He can't escape the violence because he has completely internalized it. The war is now in his garage.
And that leads right to the scene at the Rio Grande, the final image of Hank in this episode. He drives down to the river. He takes the trophy he kept from the Tuco shootout.
The grill. Tuco's teeth encased in that lucite block.
Yeah.
It was a souvenir of his victory.
He looks at it with just pure disgust, and he hurls it into the river.
He is trying to dispose of the breakage. He wants to throw the trauma away. He wants to wash his hands of the violence.
Yeah.
But the tragedy of Hank Schrader, and this is something that plays out over the next 3 seasons, is that you cannot throw away a memory. You can't throw away the way your hand shakes in an elevator.
So we have Walt refusing to break and causing chaos. We have Hank breaking privately and trying to hide it. And then we have the white marriage. This is where the concept of breakage becomes all about trust.
The domestic front is completely crumbling. We know Walt is financially stressed. The medical bills are piling up. The drug money from Tuco is dwindling. He is physically sick from the first round of chemo.
Results in 2 months, they say.
Right. But the inciting incident here is so mundane. A clogged toilet.
It's really visceral. Walt is vomiting, face in the bowl, and he sees the water rising. He fishes out the obstruction, and it's a cigarette pack. Skyler's.
Now look at the hypocrisy here. This is classic Walter White. Walt is a meth manufacturer. He has killed people. He is lying about his entire existence to everyone he loves.
But he finds a cigarette wrapper, and he immediately mounts the high horse.
He confronts Skyler with this righteous indignation. You're smoking. How could you?
Yeah.
With me having lung cancer.
And Skyler's reaction is really fascinating. In Season 1, Skyler might have cried or apologized. She was still trying to be the good wife, but Season 2, Skyler, she stonewalls him. She just refuses to apologize.
She basically looks him in the eye and says nothing.
She is rewriting the marital contract right there. Her argument is rooted in reciprocity. She knows Walt has massive secrets. She doesn't know what they are yet. She obviously doesn't know about the meth lab, but she feels the weight of his dishonesty.
Her logic is basically, if you can have a secret life, so can I. If you break the contract of total honesty, I'm not bound by it either.
It's mutually assured destruction.
That's precisely. It's a stalemate. You lie, I lie. And we see Skyler projecting this deep need for truth onto her sister, Marie. Remember the tiara incident?
Oh, right. The stolen tiara from the baby shower in a previous narrative arc. Marie stole it, gave it to Skyler, and Skyler almost got arrested returning it. Marie has been dodging that for episodes.
Skyler corners her at the cookout, celebrating Hank's promotion. It's aggressive. She demands an apology. She basically says, "This will irreversibly drive a wedge between us unless you acknowledge reality."
And it works. Marie tearfully apologizes. Skyler forces the breakage out into the open. Unlike the men who are hiding their cracks, Walt hiding the crime, Hank hiding the panic attacks, Skyler is pointing at the crack and screaming, "Look at this. Fix this."
She is desperate for control. She can't control Walt's cancer. She can't control his disappearances. She can't control the secrets in her house. But she can control Marie. She can force Marie to admit to the theft. It's a proxy war for the truth she just isn't getting from her husband.
It's really heavy stuff. Every single character is dealing with loss. And amidst all this heavy psychological drama, we have Jesse trying to build a new foundation. We have to talk about segment 4, the introduction of Jane.
This is such a pivotal moment for the series.
Yeah.
Jesse is effectively homeless at this point. He's been crashing in the RV. He finds this duplex for rent. And he meets the landlord, Jane Margolis, played by Kristen Ritter.
Jesse is trying so hard to cosplay a normal person here. He's wearing decent clothes, he's being polite, he really wants to be a responsible tenant. But the application form is a disaster. No credit, no employment history. He is a ghost in the system.
Jane is the gatekeeper to the normal life Jesse wants. She looks at the application and says no. She is professional. She spots the red flags immediately. But then Jesse flashes the cash.
And this tells us everything about Jane in about 10 seconds. She looks at the unfurnished place, she looks at the cash, she looks at the blank form, and she improvises. She says she'll rent to him, but if you pay cash, the rent is higher.
It's a corruption tax or a risk premium. She is signaling that she is transactional. She's willing to bend the rules for a profit.
In a way, she and Jesse are perfect for each other. They're both outcasts trying to navigate the straight world and both kind of failing to do it, honestly.
It establishes her as someone who isn't necessarily bad, but who is morally flexible. She's not a civilian like Skyler. She's in the gray area, just like Jesse.
And we also see Jesse trying to clean up his other loose ends with Clovis, the towing guy.
Right. He goes back to the yard. He pays for the gate he smashed in the previous breakout. He pays for the towing. He stores the RV there. He even buys a nondescript used car. A red Toyota Tercel, I think.
He is trying so hard to compartmentalize. He thinks he can keep the daytime Jesse, the guy with the apartment and the cute neighbor, completely separate from the nighttime Jesse, the guy with the gun and the meth. He thinks he can simply pay off the past.
But the gun is in the apartment.
The gun is in the apartment.
The breakage has already moved in with him. You cannot separate the two worlds. That is the lesson the show hammers home again and again. You can buy a new car, you can rent a new apartment, but if you bring the gun with you, you are still in the game.
So, bringing it all back to the critical reception, we talked about this at the start. Why did Vulture hate this episode so much? Why rank it 62nd out of 62?
I really think it suffers from middle child syndrome. It's a bridge episode. It doesn't have the kinetic energy of the pilot or the explosive climax of a season finale.
Right.
If you are binge watching for the adrenaline rush, waiting for the big explosions or the train heists, this episode feels like a brake check. It's moving pieces around. Hank to El Paso, Jesse to a new apartment, Jane's intro.
It's the vegetables. You have to eat the vegetables to get the dessert.
But for the deep dive listener, for you, this is the nutrient-dense part of the meal. You cannot understand Hank's character in seasons 3, 4, or 5 without understanding the panic attack in the elevator in season 2.
You cannot understand the tragedy of Jesse Pinkman without seeing him try and fail to be a normal tenant in this episode.
Noel Murray at the AV Club was absolutely right. The visual comparisons, the bottles versus the gunshots, the retail loss versus the human loss, Walt's secret versus Skyler's secret, that is high-level character work.
It's doing the heavy lifting so the later episodes can just coast on the emotional setup.
It honestly changes the genre. This episode is the pivot point, where Breaking Bad stops being a dark comedy about a teacher making drugs and starts being a tragedy about the true cost of power.
So let's wrap this up. If we are looking at the cost of doing business, what is the bill?
The bill is total. That is the key takeaway. You cannot budget for the kind of loss they are inviting in. Breakage isn't just about lost meth. It's about the cost of doing business in a life of crime.
Hank pays the cost through trauma. His peace of mind is gone.
Walt pays the cost through the erosion of his marriage. He wins the argument about the money, but he completely loses the trust of his wife.
And Jesse pays the cost by being forced toward violence. The concept of breakage suggests that loss is manageable. You lose 2% of inventory, you survive.
But the episode argues the exact opposite. In this world, the loss is unmanageable. It spreads. It's not a cracked jar, it's a cracked foundation. The whole house is going to come down.
And it all started because Walt wouldn't let $1,000 go.
That's the thought I really want you to sit with. Consider the definition of breakage presented by Jesse, revenue loss that must be expected. Walt rejected the financial loss of breakage. But by refusing to lose a little money, he initiates a chain of events that will break everything else in his life.
Is avoiding a small loss really worth risking a total collapse? How many times in life do we double down on a bad situation because we refuse to accept the small loss?
We throw good money after bad, or we escalate a conflict just to save face. Walt's decision to buy a gun to solve a theft problem is the ultimate cautionary tale. He thought he was saving his reputation. In reality, he was lighting the match that would burn his whole world down.
Sometimes you just have to sweep up the pickles and move on.
Exactly. Let it break. It's cheaper than the alternative.
That's a wrap on Breakage. Thank you for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.